Real estate is a contact sport. It's time to get your jersey dirty.
Let's go.
Mr. Jake Dixon!
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Well, that's quite an introduction, and I appreciate it very much. Last time I spoke, I was the guy before lunch, so I'll see how this feels going after lunch and make sure if I did good, nobody's being put to sleep. And I am amazed at all of you and your commitment for being here because it looks like all of you came back and you're not out in the casinos and doing the thing. So thanks for coming back. Really appreciate it. I mean, everything that you've heard on stage so far blew me away. I mean, the speakers, and right after I'm done, I got to go to the airport, so I'm sorry I won't hear the other speakers, but I'm sure they're going to be amazing as well. So it's awesome to share a stage with the rest of you who have stood up here before me. This is one of my favorite topics. This was actually started as a keynote that I delivered in the state of South Carolina for their annual Realtors Conference. And I've since taught this many other times since. So if you look at everybody that's stood up here before, what do they all have in common? Did you notice how they started their presentations? And I'm going to do the same thing. What did they all do? How much? They told a story. They told their story. Is it fair for us to assume every person in here has a story, but sometimes we hide from it? We feel ashamed of it. And to be able to stand with a lot of vulnerability on a stage like this and pour your heart and soul is what it's all about. Why? Because how many of you have heard your vibe attracts your tribe? Have you heard that before? Your vibe attracts your tribe? You believe in that? I want to make sure I'm in the right room here because I'm a quote junkie. How many of you are quote junkies? All right, look at the hands. I knew I was in the right room. Whoa. So fill this in for me. Life doesn't happen to you. Life happens. Good job. I knew I was in the right room. Life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you, right? So my part here today is all the practical tips and tricks and things that have been shared with you so far have been incredible as far as building your brand, building your business. They're practical things that you can go home today and implement, right? But I've also found so many of us pursue the what. Tell me what I should be doing. And sometimes we live inauthentically with ourselves. So what I'm going to present to you today is all about owning your stuff. And I've never met a successful, whatever that word means, successful person who hasn't been through some stuff. So if you've been through some stuff and you know what that is in your own life, you're in the right room. And this is going to talk to you. All right? That every single presenter, the best salespeople are also the best storytellers. And that's what this is for. So I'm going to share with you a 4-part, am I up on the screen? I can't tell. My slides? There we go. I'm going to share with you a 4-step process, turning your defining moments in life into your superpowers. Life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us, right? How many of you set goals every single year? Like every hand in the building here should raise, right? And yet, when we set goals, we often set goals based on what we want to achieve, how much money we want to earn, how many homes we want to sell, so on and so forth. When is the last time you set a goal based on who you need to become? This year. Good. Thank you. God, I got one. Yes. So, I want to make sure I say this. My job today is to make you think. If I've done my job, you'll have, same as the presenters before me, notes about your own personal life and your own personal journey in front of you. My job is not to entertain you. So I'm going to share stories. I want you to see yourself potentially inside of some of the things I'm going to share, but it's not for sheer entertainment. I hope, maybe just maybe, you feel empowered. You can relate with some of the things I'm going to be vulnerable and share with you and say, you know what? That triggers something in my own life. And when those moments happen, I want you to write it down. Listen to that little whisper going on inside of your head. Fair? Yeah? All right, so let's rock and roll here. So turning your defining moments into your superpowers. If you want, you can shoot this QR code. I don't know if you guys can get the thing out of the way. There you go. I will show this again at the very end. So if you're like, wait, can you go back in the slide? Get your phones out. Do it now if you want to. It's just going to ask you, put in your information. We'll immediately email you a workbook so that the things and steps I'm going to go over today, you can have in a tangible workbook format And again, at the end, I will make sure that this slide comes up again. Now, I am going to speak a lot of sports analogies today, okay? Because I think sports are incredible, and as you can tell, I'm a tall guy. I did play baseball in the locker room, the whole sports theme. So with your permission, I'm going to speak and share some stories regarding sports. If you're not a sports person, that's okay. You'll still be able to take away the lessons, all right? But you guys told me I'm in the right room with a group of people that like quotes. So have you heard either one of these? We often overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and yet we often underestimate what we can do in 5 years. You ever heard that? Okay, what about the one on your screen there? You're no more than 5 years away from being wherever you want to be in this world. So whatever you're going through right now, that personal stuff, whatever that stuff is for you that you're going through, and yet you feel this compelling future, that tap on the shoulder saying there's more. I know there's more in me. There's more to life than what I'm going through right now, right? I'm living proof that you're no more than 5 years away from being wherever you want to be. So here I'm going to start with one of my own personal defining moments, if that's okay. And you let me know if I've impressed you after the end of this. All right, so let's see. Actually almost 6 years ago at the time, let's see, I was getting ready to move my family from the state of Illinois, which is where I'm originally from, Illinois, down to North Carolina for an opportunity. I was chasing opportunities, and at the time, I was a CEO, team leader for a very large real estate office with a very large real estate company. And so I had a fancy title, had a secure job, and yet what people didn't know is I was a complete fraud to my friends, because I was posting on social media, which only gets the highlight reel for most of us, about how life was perfect, and look at me, I've got this fancy title, this great job, and I'm moving for a big opportunity, and yet what little did they know, my friends, my family, most people close to me did not know, is there was a lot that was broken going on behind the scenes, all right? So let's go through some of these and see if I can impress you. Let's see. We had $35,000 of credit card debt. We had $30,000 of back tax debt that we owed the government. My wife had liquidated her 401 or her teacher's pension fund, like 40 grand, which you're not supposed to touch that money, for the move because we needed cash. I liquidated my IRA, or my 401k rather, about another 40 grand at the time, paid big penalties because you're not supposed to touch that money. But again, we needed the cash. We needed the liquidity to make this big move, this big leap of faith. So all the while, I had a wife, and by the way, I'm still married to this person, just want to put that out there, but my wife was saying things like she didn't have a husband. She had a roommate. Her words, I don't have a husband, I've got a roommate. I was a workaholic, man, I love to work. I'm sitting there at 2 a.m. with the laptop on my lap, and I'm just going, oh hey, complete neglecting all the other key relationships, obviously, in my life at the time. My daughters, Ava and Addie, back then, they were, 2 and 1 years old, respectively, and every single month we were spending more than we were making, and life was not looking good. By the time we moved to North Carolina on a promise and a hope for change and things would be different this time around, we had spent all that money we took out of retirement and had $8,000 left to our name. And I remember, insert defining moment. I remember driving outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Anybody from North Carolina in here? Just curious? Couple? All right. Yeah, 3. All right. So outside of Raleigh area, there's a lake. I believe it's called Jordan Lake. And if you don't know me, I'm big into the rustic lake life kind of stuff. Like I'm a simple dude from the sticks of Illinois. I don't ask for much, but I want a house on a lake and a boat and create experiences with my family. Those are the big things, right? And so there was this long bridge that goes over this stretch of this lake. And I'm driving there one day, and I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, and I'm thinking, what do all these people have that I don't have? They're out there boating, they're playing over there on the beach, they're living the lake life, and I'm like, I'm a smart guy, I'm a hard worker, but I must be doing something wrong because all these families are creating memories and experiences, and I feel like I'm just stuck, and I don't know what to do. Can anybody else relate to times in their life they feel similar? So it was at that moment, call it God, call it whatever you believe in, but I felt like a metaphorical tap on the shoulder or that whisper in the ear, and you know what I'm talking about. That basically says, Jake, you're meant to do more. right? Is this really it for you? Are you really pursuing what makes you passionate? And I started to ask myself questions like, well, what am I passionate about? What lights me up? What gets me going? And the answer was sitting across the table from a real estate agent, helping them establish their why, coming up with their goals and the action plan to achieve those goals. That's what lit me up. It wasn't recruiting. It wasn't managing staff and running an office. It was that. And so, well, hey, knucklehead, why aren't you doing that then? Well, I can stand before you. The speakers just run laps around me. At least I got one more than Tom Ferry, I guess, but I've sold one home in real estate. It's not because I sucked at real estate. It's because I sold one home really, really fast, and then I got the tap on the shoulder from our owner in this real estate office wanting to interview me for this team leader opportunity. And so I went down that leadership path. But anyways, that's going to play a key factor here in just a second. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to decide. I'm going to become a real estate coach because that's what lights me up, and you can't stop me. You can't do anything about it. Fast forward. I go to my own office. They had the vacancy available. They were looking for a coach. Never offered it to this guy, probably due to a lack of experience. So denial number one. Denial number two, the coaching company within this organization, I submitted my interest, kicked it back saying, nope, not enough experience. Other big name companies that I will not, because I think all coaching companies are wonderful, but several big names that I tried getting in, same thing. So I was denied a combination of 4 times in a very short period of time. And I'm like, well, crap, what do I do now? I just need somebody to give me a chance. Just give me a chance. So one final ditch attempt, I reached out to my friend Shelby down in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and I said, hey, are you still looking for a coach? And she said, yeah, actually, we interviewed a guy the other day, didn't end up taking the deal. Why do you know somebody? And I was like, you're looking at him. Me. Oh my gosh. Something's going on with the sound. Sorry. You're looking at him. What the heck? I'll just stand somewhere. And so she took a chance on me. She ended up hiring me into her office as their coach, which means I had to move my family again. And that was hard. I think my wife still resents me for that a little bit today. All right. But anyways, fast forward. Those first 6 months, we ended up growing the #1 coaching platform or coaching program inside of this brokerage in 6 months. That first year, I helped brand new agents, lesser experienced agents, close $3.6 million of GCI for $124 million of volume. That was about 623 closings, and we generated over $1 million of squeaky clean company revenue in that very first year. And we duplicated that same success for 2 more years thereafter. That's where the locker room was born. And so I share that with you to say, life looks a little different now. I've got my house on a lake. That's all I really asked for, okay? And it all started with a decision. It all started with a defining moment when I was just tired. That was enough, and I knew there was more inside of me. I know you guys can relate to it. I can see you shaking your heads. So this slide is not, again, to impress you or whatever. These things are going to come into play through some of the stories and analogies I'm going to give you regarding baseball. You can see some baseball things on the screen and some of the accomplishments I was able to go through with baseball, as well as now real estate coaching. All right? So in this 4-step process, we're going to go through this together, but I want to first ask you a couple of questions. If you literally want to answer these, please feel free. Number 1, have you ever found yourself trying to live up to somebody else's expectations? Maybe you grew up in a family where you were supposed to be this person because every other person in the family was a doctor or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? You're trying to live up to other people's expectations. Or what about, have you ever tried to fake it till you make it? You ever heard that one, right? Have you said it to other people? I know I have, regrettably. But I'm not all about the fake it till you make it stuff, knowing what I know now, okay? Or what about, have you ever been told that success lives outside your comfort zone? Now, some of what I'm going to share today is just my perspectives. I don't have to be right. I have an ego, we all have an ego, but my ego is not that big, okay, that I have to be right or convince you that my perspective is the right one. But if you'll allow me to challenge maybe the way you see things, would that be valuable to you today? Just keep an open mind for me. Because if we're not careful, this programming, these things that we hear, we all of a sudden adopt as a real-life belief system, and we never question or slow down and think, well, hang on, is that really true? Does success really have to live outside my comfort zone? Do I really have to wake up every day doing something that I don't exactly look forward to or dread because I don't want to cold call FSBOs and expireds, but when I got in the business, somebody told me that's what you're supposed to do? You getting what I'm saying here? So I think somewhere in there we can all agree you've heard or can relate with those things. So I told you I have 4 steps. Step number 1 is examining your current reality and or your belief system. So the very first question before we can go forward is, how do you define success? That's a real question. Like, I've coached a lot of people, and a lot of the time I spend coaching these people is actually helping them understand their definition of that very question. How do you define success? My fear is, insert unpopular opinion maybe, my fear is when you say, oh, that person is so successful, what you're really saying is that person makes a lot of money. True for most. Success equals financial well-being for most people, and how the quick definition of it. Well, I was doing all right, but my life, otherwise, my relationships, my marriage, everything else that I wanted to role model for my kids growing up was broken. Is that really success? I coached a $150 million a year team out of Arizona. You know how much the team leader made? 0. He was broke. Legitimately broke. But he was crossing stages at conferences like this. People like you are sitting there saying, oh, I want to be that someday. Really? Which is why somebody earlier said it's not about the GCI, I think said it was the ego, it's the net income, it's the profit. Because that guy, so many other people wanted to compare their insides to his outsides, not if you knew, he was broke as a joke. Right? So how do you define success? If I went around this entire room and had the time to ask you, I guarantee most of you would have a slightly different answer to that. So why in the hell do we spend so much time comparing ourselves to this person and that person when we can agree right here today that maybe your definition of success is very different from someone else's? And we get caught in that trap of comparing ourselves, and when that happens, the self-talk begins. Am I worth it? Do I really deserve it? Maybe I should go get a real job. Things like that, okay? If you can answer that, and all this is in that workbook, okay? Does success then, and I would add, does your version of success then live outside of your comfort zone? Back to that question again. How many of you have seen this? Does this look familiar? Seen that on Facebook ever? What about this one? Have you seen this before, or something like it? Anybody? Hello? Okay, got it. Thank you. That's the participation part. All right. Is this really true? I'm scrolling. My news feed is blown up with stuff like this, and if I just keep scrolling after looking at something like this, if I'm not careful, this mindset thing that everybody else was talking about, you got to protect it. You got to fight for it. You'll adopt this as your own truth if you're not careful. I personally, my perspective, my opinion, this is complete BS. Look at this. The 2%, like, who the hell even came up with this? The coward didn't even put their name or credit, like, who conducted this survey? 2% of the population is this mindset of success? I mean, look at this stuff. I guess they embrace the unknown, excitement, liking change, they're abundant, they have confidence, they're going for their dreams, on and on and on. You guys can read that. And don't mind us, the 98% of us there in the middle, we'll just be over here, okay? I guess we're just being like everybody else. We're just insecure. We live in fear. We're just getting by, we're playing it safe, we're settling for less, blah, 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 blah. I've got to believe there's more to life than just this, don't you? I've got to believe there's not a finite amount of success. It's available to all of us, especially knowing now that you have your own definition and I have mine. Make sense? So, Jake, what do you believe in? Great question. Let's talk about it. This is what I believe in. Like it or love it. You can leave it. You can take it with you if you'd like. This is what our stance is at the locker room. I'm all about you owning your story. I'm all about you acknowledging your strengths. I believe success, your definition of it, lives by expanding your strength zone. Now, some of you are like, all right, this guy's just playing semantics. Call it what you want, okay? But here's what we're going to do. You start in that middle bullseye where it says your strength zone. What is your strength zone? This is step number one, is identifying what are your strengths. See, I believe in that inner circle, if you can read it, it's got things like your natural behavioral style. Anybody ever done the DISC or StrengthsFinder or any assessments like that? Yeah. It's that. It's your natural interests. It's your transferable skills from other careers that you had before real estate. Stop discounting that stuff. Don't they say success leaves clues? You got to follow the breadcrumb trail and ask yourself, when are times in my life that I was at the peak moment of it? I was fulfilled, I was winning, all those things. Find those pockets of time and start asking yourself, who was I? What was I doing? Was I living in my element, my strength zone, or was I just being uncomfortable because somebody told me I was supposed to be? Right? So once you've mastered your strength zone, that inner bullseye, that inner ring, now we can begin to expand. This is what I'm naturally good at. And by the way, before I move on to this, because you're humble, if you struggle answering that, like, I don't know, I don't really know what my gifts are, my natural talents are, send a text to 5 people today. Seriously, send a text to 5 people today saying, hey, this tall, goofy-looking guy who was on stage told me to text you and ask you, what are the top things that you admire most about me or consider to be my strengths? You're one of my closest friends, family members. Would you just humor me and respond back with some key buzzwords? Has anybody ever done that before, by the way? It's a vulnerable moment. Yeah, a few of you. Yes, of course you have. It's a wonderful exercise, and you'll be amazed at some of the responses and the consistency of those responses if you're able to actually receive them. Because what that's very telling is how they see you might actually not be in alignment with the way that you see yourself. And there's a growth moment when that happens, okay? But anyways, once you identify those inner bullseye words there, then we can begin to expand that strength zone. Now I can be more intentional. Now I can double down. I can 10x things. I can own it. This is who I am. Right? This is what I do, and this is what I don't do. You heard it earlier. Hire to your weaknesses. Agreed. I don't have to be great at everything. I just need to be good, really freaking good at a few things, okay? I can hire for the rest. This whole yes-no thing, right? Now, at the risk of me actually sounding kind of smart, I think it was Sir Isaac Newton who said, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, it's like 6th grade probably or something. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when I say yes to something, that means I'm saying no to something else. What is it? What is it? ... Are you okay with that? If I say yes, it's 6 o'clock, I'm in the middle of dinner with my family, sitting at the table, my phone's ringing, and I look down and say, I see dollar signs. That's a $5,000 commission check because they want to go see that property right now. What do I do? Now, I'm not judging you as long as you've set expectations with your family, but if your initial reaction is, I got to go, I got to take this, what you just said yes to is a commission check, an opportunity, fair, but what did you say no to? Your family. Your family. Your kids. The conversations you could have had without technology, okay? Actual conversations. That's why I added that ... part. Are you okay with that? If I say yes to something, that means I'm saying no to something else. What is it, and am I okay with that? You guys, this is part of everyday life. If I want to flex my bicep muscle, what has to happen? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I flex my bicep, that means what? What is equal and opposite? My tricep. For this to flex, this one has to relax. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Once you've mastered that, then, again, expanding your strength zone, never once getting outside of my comfort zone. I'm living in who I am and what comes really natural to me. My natural gifts and talents and transferable skills, my behavioral style, all of that molded together creates a beautiful recipe called you. Stop trying to fake it till you make it and be somebody you're not. All those things that the speakers before said are wonderful, but if you're operating out of alignment and you're just doing them to do them, people can smell that commission breath coming from a mile away while you're really doing it, okay? Now, that outer ring, the last one, this is where we all want to be, right? Maximize, influence. I'm building a new network now with people who are like-minded, positive, make me a better person. I think all the coaches and people in here would agree. If you say, I want to earn 6 figures, Jake, because that's what everybody says. I want to earn 6 figures. Cool. One of the quickest ways to do that is to go associate with people earning 6 figures. Just by being in their proximity. There's a difference as to why people will pay for, the Super Bowl just happened, right? They'll pay tens of thousands of dollars to be at the game, having a seat in the stadium at the game. And yet it's free to watch the game at home on your couch. People pay for proximity. Proximity matters. So when you are owning who you are, you're going to attract other people who are like, yeah, I don't care, right? I know who I am. I'm very clear about that. And from my experience, that's who you want to surround yourself with. Systematize, enter into a more higher level of strategic thinking. That's where we want to be. So I'm just going to submit that to you today. Does success really have to live outside my comfort zone, or is there a better way? Called your strength zone, right? Now, I told you this is 4 steps. So step 1, if you're following me here, is to think or ask your friends, ask your family, what are my strengths? What are those unique qualities, those transferable skills, my behavioral style that I can own, truly own it, to find my version of success by tapping into it? That is your first step of 4. Cool? Cool. Step 2 now, this is where I'm going to talk sports. This is my favorite section. Step 2 is to study the game film. Again, in light of the Super Bowl that just finished, what do you think those teams were doing 2 weeks prior, those 2 weeks in between the actual game? What were they doing every day? Huh? That's it. They were practicing, yes, but you just said it. They were studying. They're in the war room watching game film. They're studying tape, not only on themselves, but on their competition, their opponent. They're seeing, missed a tackle there, missed the block there. How can we do better next time and tighten up? The best at whatever their craft is, today I'm talking sports, they study their game film. How many times do we study our game film? We're just go, go, go with life if we're not careful, right? Maybe that's just me. So you have to be very intentional. You study people like John Maxwell and Bill Gates and them. They will literally disappear to a cabin in the middle of the woods with no cell service of any kind for 2 weeks to have quiet time. John Maxwell has a chair where he just has quiet time. But you have to calendar it. Because in that quiet time, my brain can go there. I can relax. I can study the game film and say, you know what? Yesterday's open house, that didn't really go well. And if I just say, whatever, I'll just do another one, and then another one, and then another one, you're missing opportunities to learn and grow. Instead, I can do that open house and now ask myself the KISS questions. You might want to write this down. K-I-S-S, not keep it simple, stupid. KISS is whatever I just did. It's like an AAR in the military, right? What do I need to keep doing? That's the K. What do I need to keep doing? It worked. Do more of it. Okay? The I, what do I need to be more intentional about? If I just dialed it in a little bit more next time, it might break me through that glass ceiling. The first S, you probably guessed it, what do I need to stop doing? Stop it. Cut your losses. It ain't working. Sorry, it's not working. Okay. The final S is what do I need to start doing? Call yourself out. You're exhibiting avoidance behavior somewhere, probably in the form of lead generation or something. Why? What is the block? What do you need to start doing? If you run that KISS play on everything that you do, the knowledge and what you uncover and how you can make in-game adjustments will change your world. So what I'm going to do with you right now, if this is okay, this is the entertainment part, but I don't want it to be, is share 4 moments in my life, defining moments in my life. I want you to think, not just get caught up in my short stories here. So we're going to study the game film. Look at that guy. Come on. Sophomore year? Like, I'm not going to be, well, I might be one of those guys, grandpa, like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know. But look, for me, this was real, all right? It's why it's on here. My sophomore year of high school, believe it or not, basically, short story was, it was a playoff game, second inning. I'm in small town, Cornfield, Illinois, and the Midwest thunderstorm blows through, lightning, thunder, the whole deal. Umpires call the game and postpone it for tomorrow. Right? Pretty typical. But what happened next was our coach was yelling at us players to get the equipment up, get it inside, hurry up, go, 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 go. And we were probably just goofing around. I don't even remember at this point. But apparently we weren't getting the equipment picked up quick enough because he was just livid. Maybe he just had a bad day. But by the time we got in the gym, here's what happened next. Now, if you can't tell, I'm pretty tall. I was a really good athlete, not just baseball, basketball, and the other things, but I was very open about my goals to play college and or professional baseball. People knew that at a pretty young age. Now, nobody did that. Like, you farmed. You stayed around our town of 700 people, and you farmed, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It just wasn't what I wanted. So knowing that, what he did in front of all my teammates as he's chewing us all out, he gets it right in my face, and he points that pointer finger. He says, none of you will ever see the inside of a college or pro stadium unless you buy a ticket. Verbatim, those were his exact words. I can see it right now. None of you will ever see the inside of a college or pro stadium unless you buy a ticket. Now let me ask you a question. How have you responded in your life when somebody says you can't do something? Shout it out. That's right, baby. Challenge accepted. Let me show you, okay? Insert chip placed on shoulder. How appropriate. We're in a casino, right? Chip is on the shoulder. Let's go. So whatever that moment is for you, that's what I'm talking about. For me, as the story continues, I'm sitting in that moment. I'm thinking, well, geez, that's a blow. My coach, who I thought was supposed to be in my corner and believe in me and want to promote and do all that, is sitting here telling me that I can't do something interesting. So I'm faced with a decision. Do I go right or do I go left? I could have easily said, you know what, coach, you're probably right. Nobody's ever gone on athletically to do anything like this. What am I thinking? I'm crazy. After all, we live in the sticks of nowhere, and who's going to find me anyways? Or I could say, nah. Your version of the story is quite different from mine, and I had a decision to make. Now, obviously, this is why I shared some of that slide earlier. I went on and saw some really cool stadiums. I played with a lot of guys that you've seen on TV. And I've shared this at athletic banquets at high schools and things, and that's where the story always stopped. But it wasn't until several years ago as I'm listening to an audiobook called The Storyteller's Secret. Check that out if you need another book recommendation. The Storyteller's Secret. And I'm sitting at a stoplight and like, oh my God, that's it. The gift in that day was never, na-na-na-na-boo-boo, I did it anyways. Showed you, coach. The real gift in that moment was he lit this flame inside my soul, man, that I want it so freaking badly for you. I don't know y'all, but I know what's in there, and I can't apologize for that. And committed that I'm never going to be that guy who poo-poos on somebody else's goals and dreams. And that brings me to superpower number 1. What did I get out of that day? What was the real gift? It's resiliency. I have a superpower now because of that moment, my sophomore year of high school, for resiliency. Never let somebody talk you out of your dream. Just because that guy who had his own goals, he was a third-string catcher, never went on to do anything, just because it didn't work out for him does not give him permission to try and talk me out of mine. And neither do you. There's people in your life right now who are chirping. We call those the haters, don't we? Those are the keyboard warriors that you're maybe holding back. You're playing small right now because you don't want to expose yourself to criticism or what that one person on your Facebook page might say back about whatever it is you're doing. We shrink ourselves. We play small. It's that Marianne Williamson poem, that quote, right? So there's a ton of lessons inside of this, but you have to be true to yourself. If you want it, go get it. Do it anyways. Said I couldn't do it. People said I can't be a real estate coach. I got a .52 medium fit on some stupid assessment that was supposed to tell me whether or not I was going to be a good real estate coach or not. Sold one home. Got denied 4 times. My story's no different than all of your stories, right? I can just stand up here and have a microphone and share it. It's the only difference. So where in your life, maybe it's happening right now, are people chirping or questioning your ability to do something? Go do it anyways. Prove them wrong. Moment 2. This is my favorite one, if I'm allowed to have a favorite. So this, gosh, I'm living in the glory days, aren't I? This is the summer between my junior and senior years of high school. Here we go again. But check this out in all seriousness. So I was playing American Legion baseball. It was a typical summer game at night. That's a detail. And I was set to pitch this particular game. So before the game, I'm warming up in the bullpen, and I see a couple college scouts that I knew from a couple universities and things nearby. They were there to watch me play. And right before I go into the game, I see this other gentleman pull up in a car. Never recognized him before, but you can tell a scout when they're, if you know anything about, like, you can tell that's a scout. God, what is happening? And so I didn't think much of it. I ended up having one of the best games of my entire summer. I threw a complete game, 1 hitter, went 3 for 4, hit 2 home runs that game, and it was one of the best games I had that particular summer. Now here's what's interesting. After the game, this guy who I didn't recognize comes up and introduces himself. He shakes my hand and says, good game, son. So thank you, sir. He introduces himself as Mr. Doug Horning. Doug was one of 5, I think 5, scouts for the Major League Scouting Bureau. Now, if you don't know what the Major League Scouting Bureau is, they scout on behalf of all 30 Major League teams. They don't just represent a team. They don't have a dog in the fight. They're eyes and ears for talent for all 30 Major League teams. And if they find talent, they submit that talent to all 30 teams to go check out. My senior year of high school, I didn't have any less than 10 Major League Scouts in attendance in the cornfields of Illinois watching me play. But here's the part of the story I want to make sure I share. I didn't know it at the time, but later he shared with me. He had no intention of seeing me. He had never heard my name. I'm just a nobody on the map. What happened was, he flew into Chicago, Illinois that day to go see a kid play up in the Chicago area. Rented a car, was driving down to St. Louis to see a kid play tomorrow in the St. Louis area because he controlled the whole Midwest. And wouldn't you know it, he's getting tired. He needs to stretch his legs, take a break, and he sees lights on at a freaking baseball field. Whose game do you think that was? You dang right it was. It was my game. He had no idea who I was. So here's the lesson. You got to show up and play all in, ladies and gentlemen. You don't know who's, yeah, you can clap. You never know who's watching. I didn't know who that guy was. He didn't know who I was. But I had the right game in front of the right person on the right night. Now, depending on your belief system, I'm with Eric on this one. I don't think things happen by chance. I think that was divine intervention. Right? But right now, I want you to reflect in your own life. How are you showing up? Are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? You don't know who's watching. If you're fortunate to have kids, your kids are watching you, I promise you that. But if it's not, it's how you're putting yourself out there in social media or people are watching. If you don't know anything about how scouts in any sport work, I promise you they're not there to see how can I fall in love with this kid. They're looking for every reason to cross you off their list rather than circle it. If I had that same game, imagine, just seriously, put yourself, if you can, in this situation. What if I had that same game, but the one hit I gave up, or the one time I didn't get on base? What if I'm kicking the dirt, I'm slamming my helmet, I'm showing up my teammates, acting like a jerk? What do you think would have happened? Cross off the list, get in the car, head back up the road down to St. Louis. Do not give anybody a reason to cross you off their list. You don't know who's watching. I tell this all the time. And this is literal. This is the first time it's literally potentially happening that I always, when I go to work or speak at things like this, just like you, I'm taking time away from my family to be here. Not getting paid for it. Happy to do it, okay? But I always imagine that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, right there today, that it's being live streamed to home for my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old to watch. Is what I'm doing right now making them proud? And I just put myself in that frame of reference because that changes how I show up and whether or not I choose to play all in. If I say I'm at work for 8 hours, I'm freaking working. I'm not scrolling and doing stupid stuff. I am working because I said I was. Otherwise, I might as well pack it in and go home and spend time with them. What the hell's the point? You with me? So right now, for all I know, they're watching at home and love you, mean it, and I just want to exhibit and role model the behavior and the work ethic that I want those two girls growing up doing. Make sense? Thank you. Number 3, I told you I got 4, so we're moving right along. Number 3, finally, we're beyond high school years. So that's a picture of me in the Angels dugout, Anaheim Angels. So I had I have a big scar on my pitching elbow, Tommy John surgery. I had surgery my junior year of college, came back, rehab, pitched 2 good years on it. In my very first year in pro ball, I re-injured my pitching elbow, and I had always made the promise that if I tore that sucker again, I was just going to move on with life. That's it. I'm not going through a second surgery and chasing whatever. But at least I got there, okay? Haha, coach. So anyways, a little humble brag. But this particular time, my very first year there in pro ball, I remember it very clearly. It was July 4th, 2006, out in Idaho Falls, Idaho, pitching in a game, and I felt it. I felt it. Tore my elbow, my ligament again, and that was it. Just like that. That was it. And that's a scary moment for a young guy, questioning, like, all my identity was wrapped up into that. I'm supposed to be, making everybody back home proud and get into the show and do all these things. And in that moment, everything that I thought was going to happen and who I thought I was gone. And I was pretty bitter about that for a couple years at least regarding baseball and all that. Kind of going through an identity crisis. But my superpower now that I'm kind of somewhat mature, that I got from that moment, looking back at the game film, studying my game film, the wisdom I get from that now and turning into a superpower is having faith over fear. And I want to talk to you guys about that for just a second. Faith over fear. Both are believing in something that you cannot see, right? Isn't that the point of faith in the first place? But you have to pick one. You can't have both. It's counterproductive. It's either faith or fear. You get to choose. But I want to kind of dispel that. Again, back to the whole comfort zone thing. I want to talk about fear just for a hot second. My perspective on this is the following. Just humor me here. Could you imagine years ago, thousands of years ago, by the way, sitting in that cave, huddled around you at the campfire with your family, like we're talking cavemen kind of stuff here, and outside your cave, you hear something kind of wrestling around in the bushes, and you're like, dude, what's that? Is that thing trying to eat us, or are we going to eat it? It's that fight or flight mechanism. You know what I'm talking about? In that moment, I would think, there was fear, right? And I'm here to potentially liberate at least one person in this room by saying the following. Fear is nothing to be ashamed of. Fear is nothing to be embarrassed by. Fear is very real, and it exists. When people say, oh, our fearless leader, Jake. No, I'm a fearful leader, okay? I am not a fearless person. But here's what I want to maybe give somebody in this room today. Fear is actually a protection mechanism. Fear is actually a good thing if you change the way you look at it. It's an emotional reaction to something, right? But if I can acknowledge it for what it is in that caveman type moment and say, actually, it's serving me. It's a protection mechanism. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually trying to help me. Might that change the way you look at it? Probably. I would think so. And now here's what that looks like in a real estate agent's real world. I know I'm supposed to not cold call, I know I'm supposed to call 10 people a day, for example. But when I look at that phone, I'm like, I don't wanna. That looks like it weighs 10,000 pounds, and I don't really wanna pick that up right now because of the fear of rejection, looking and sounding stupid, blah, 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 all the fears that we hear. Maybe I'm just the only one, but you can process it however you like. So instead of like, oh, whatever, what if you just had a conversation with it? Kind of personify it. Hey, fear, what's up? Good to see you today. Look, I know you're here to serve and protect me. I really appreciate that. But here's the deal. All I'm going to do is call 10 people today to check in and see how I can add value to them and have a little small talk, and maybe, just maybe, real estate comes up. So I know you're here to protect me, but I'm going to be okay. I got this. I'm going to be just fine. Nobody's going to jump through the phone and hurt me. I'll see you next time. What if you just had a conversation with it instead of pretending like it doesn't exist or being embarrassed by it? Just saying. Okay. So there you go. It's a protection mechanism. One of the greatest questions that served me well is right there in bold. How is this, whatever this is, going to serve me in the future? It's not trying to pull me back or hold me back. Actually, if I flip the script and I say, my fear of calling these 10 people and me doing it anyways, how is that actually going to serve me in the future? Gaining confidence, creating a discipline, establishing a habit. Like, flip the script. And that's all we're doing here. Last thing I want to say on this, it's not always about the destination, it's about the journey. I loved every minute of playing baseball and being able to do that. But I now get it. I was leading a team, for example, of 12U kids down in Florida. I was a coach of a 12U baseball team. What if the first practice of the year, I had this big old 6-foot-tall trophy. I said, hey guys, before even practice begins, here's your trophy. Congratulations, you won the league. And now for probably about 20 minutes, they're going to be like, yeah! They're going to be jumping up and down and throwing a party. But I would like to think at some point, they might actually pause and say, well, hang on, wait a minute. We haven't even practiced. We haven't even played a game yet. What did we do to earn this or deserve this big 6-foot-tall trophy saying we're the state champs or whatever? You getting this? So that applies right here too. Don't forget to appreciate and have fun, for God's sakes, along the way. We're in the people business. And all the advice you were given earlier by being curious and asking questions and letting them talk, it should be fun. You don't need to wake up every day wanting to stab your eyeballs out because you're dreading talking to 10 people. What is that? Thanks for the humor. Thank you. I got one, yeah. So, look, it's about the journey, not the destination. Or at least don't forget to appreciate the journey. The last one I'll share with you, this is step 2. Training and preparation. I could go on for days, and who am I? I mean, there's probably military and other folks in here who have been through a lot worse. But hey, it's my story, okay? Couple things. That's a strong word. I don't really like getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go lift weights in college. And yet that's what we had to do. That's from college. Every morning, 4:30, we're in the gym. After gym, we go to our 8 o'clock classes, done by 1 o'clock so we can hit the practice field for a 3-hour practice. You go home, you do your homework, rinse and repeat every day. I did not exactly enjoy that. Just saying. My sister, who is sick and weird probably, maybe some of you are this way too, you're weird, she has to run like 10 miles a day. And if she doesn't, she feels off. Anybody? Like, you would be you. I'm just not there. But when you are there, you know you've created a habit. If your day just kind of feels wonky because you didn't do that thing. I never got that way with working out. Every year, coming back from Christmas break, we had to do the Hell Week, where every day we're out there in the parking lot, averaging 10 miles a day. For some of you, that's easy. For us, it wasn't. Guys had stress fractures. They were vomiting. It was just this whole scene, right? But a couple that I want to share with you, or at least one. This is no joke, actually. I tell this, but I'm literally on the stage right now, much like this, with actually there was more than this. But every year, we had to do what was called the flex off. Now, let me apologize in advance for the mental imagery I'm about to give you. But every year, we would have to get up in front of a group of hundreds of sorority women on a stage just like this, lathered up in baby oil, and pose and flex and do the whole thing. And that was weird for me. I'm a small town guy. I don't look for that kind of attention. And I wasn't one of those shredded, guys anyway. So, but I remember Coach saying, if you can do that, you can get up in front of a room like this and present or speak or run a business or whatever. And he was right. But the moral of the story is I did not love those things. What I did love was playing the game. So through all of those experiences, what I learned, plain and simple, was commitment. There's one of our coaches says this all the time, marry the process, divorce the results. What if we enjoyed the process? What if we appreciated the process? We talked about leading and lagging measures earlier. Same thing, right? But do you love this real estate game enough that you're willing to go through the crap to win the game? Man, I would give anything to stand up there on that mound with a ball in my hand again and say, let's go. I dare you to hit this. If you beat me today, I'll tip my cap, but next time I'm going to get you, okay? That's that warrior. That's that competitor. That's the committed spirit talking, and you've got to find it for you. I don't have to enjoy every second of lead generation or lead follow-up. I don't have to, right? But if I love the game enough, I'm willing to sacrifice and do whatever it takes to stand out on that mound, or in your case, be at that closing table, or see that smile on the face knowing that little Johnny's going to learn to ride his bike in that neighborhood. Whatever your game is and the victory of it, figure it out, and then ask yourself, am I really committed to this process, to doing whatever it takes because I love it that much? Does this make sense? I say it a lot. Success can be boring. It's repetitious. It's mundane. Look, the guys on TV, major leagues, earning millions and millions of dollars in the Hall of Fame, succeeding 3 out of 10 times, get you in the Hall of Fame. They put a ball on a tee, and they take hundreds of swings every day hitting a baseball on a tee. When I used to give kids baseball lessons, they're like, come on, coach, a little 12-year-old punk or something. Do I really? That's t-ball stuff. And I'm like, dude, until you're on TV earning millions of bucks, you can do whatever you want. But for now, we're going to master the fundamentals of the game. And here's what I want to share with you. An analogy or a correlation I've learned between baseball and real estate is this. The fundamentals of the game don't change. The game just speeds up. Let me explain. The same thing, I'll start with baseball. The same way I would teach a kid to grip a baseball or hold a bat is literally the same way those guys are doing it in the big leagues, earning millions of dollars. That doesn't change. But instead, in Little League, that kid's throwing 55. Now they're throwing 95. So the lesson is the game, the fundamentals of real estate do not change. The game just speeds up. Exactly what you need to do to close 12 homes a year is the same thing you need to do to close 112 homes a year. Get used to it. Accept the boredom that's associated with mastery. What is your version of putting the ball on a tee? Every day, having conversations about real estate, following up with old ones, learning and practicing your scripts, things like that. It's not sexy. It's not always exciting, but I've got to get the reps in, and I've got to master the fundamentals. Get that? Something else. Does the audio match the video? I could go to, let's see, Michael Phelps, swimmer, most decorated Olympic athlete of all time. Michael Phelps, or I could sit here and say, I want as many gold medals as Michael Phelps. But when I look at him and understand now what it takes, and he's spending 16 hours a day in that swimming pool, I'm like, I don't want it that much. You can have it. No wonder he's a freak. He's different. So as real estate agents, I can say I want to earn 6 figures or start a team and get 7, whatever it is. I don't care. But when you find out what it actually takes, are you still as committed? Are you still as, do you want it that bad enough? Because I don't when I learn what Michael Phelps has to do to get those medals around his neck. Does the audio match the video? Oh, last thing. Am I over time? Is that what that is? Keep going? Okay. I'll be quick. Okay. I'm almost done, I promise. One more just silly baseball example. A couple years ago, if you're a New York Mets fan, you'll appreciate this. Pete Alonso, he's a player on the New York Mets, Okay, he's doing the home run derby at the All-Star break. And I'll never forget when the camera, it's in the middle of a home run derby. He ended up winning, by the way. The camera finds him underneath the stadium, hitting a ball, you guessed it, off of a tee, getting his reps in the middle of a home run derby that he later won. Same lesson. If those guys are doing it and they're just getting the reps in, they're mastering the fundamentals, you would think he's going to drop his elbow and try and lift the ball out of the park. No, he's just getting his normal cuts in. Interesting example. All right, so step number 1, what was it? It was to identify and own your strengths, right? Step 2 was to study your game film. I gave you examples from my own personal life of what studying the game film would look like. That's the whole reason I just did that. If it triggered something for you, great. Step number 3 is now actually converting it, the whole message of today. So here's one slide that I have on this one. For each one, imagine you have a page full of these defining moments, the highs, the lows, the things that made you who you are today. Remember, success doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Or it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So I want you imagining this whole sheet of paper with all these defining moments from your life, and one by one you ask these questions. How does this experience translate into a unique strength of mine? What was the real gift or lesson inside of that moment? How did that thing, you get to fill in the blank, shape who I am today and how it's serving me now moving forward? Some of you doing this exercise, it'll cut the chains. What you thought was something you would just sweep under the rug because you were embarrassed by it, turns out is actually the very thing that makes you qualified. I think it was Ed Milet just said this. What if it was possible that things that you're hiding from or ashamed of are actually the very things that qualify you for the job? You just got to own it and tell your story. And if that scares people away with your transparency and vulnerability, they were never your people in the first place. The right ones are going to come running and sit around that campfire because they feel the warmth by you sharing that story, and it makes them feel not so crazy too. So you would ask those series of questions for each one, and then finally, it's the power of the I am statements. Are I am statements powerful, yes or yes? I am blank. Oh, I'm so stupid. Careful, those are affirmations, all right? Watch out for that thing called your brain. So for each one of those, from blank experience, I am what because of it. I want you to declare it. I want you to own it. Say it loud and proud. Turn it around saying, that thing used to hold me back and drag me down. No more. From that, I am boom because of it. That's what you're going to do. Again, all this is in the workbook. Lastly, I'll close this out. Your job now, after you've done all this work, is to establish a game plan. What are you going to do with this new sense of ownership and uncovering things that maybe you just hid for years and years and years from your story? How can you take what you've realized to become a better leader in your community, your family, your church, whatever it is? Who needs to hear your story? Notice I didn't say, does somebody need to hear your story? I said, who? All of us are standing up here sharing our junk, and if I've liberated a single person in here, I've done my part today. If you're just judging me, that's cool too. And how can you use this to create a very clear mission, vision, and belief system for your business and your personal life? The last thing I'm going to share to close this whole thing out is your business, in my opinion, should be a direct reflection of who you are. Most of our time, most of our adult hours are spent when we're awake, working. I might as well do something I enjoy and the people I enjoy it with, right? Otherwise, hey, it's okay, not everybody's meant to work with me. And I'm not meant to work with everybody else either. Doesn't mean I still can't refer you. There's some great coaches in here. If we have a conversation and we're not a fit, that's fine. I'm cool with that, right? You have a gift. Your job is to share it. It's not your job to convince or worry about whether that person's ready to receive it or not. Your job is to share it, right? And that's where a lot of people play small. Once you walk in this new sense of confidence and ownership about your background and how those defining moments are, in fact, your superpowers, you're gonna feel like a beast. I'm telling you right now, okay? I said earlier, there's going to be haters. Let your haters be your motivators. We've all heard something similar, I'm sure. Is this thing even on anymore? Yes. Let your haters be your motivators. Lastly, this is the most important piece for me. Somebody said it earlier. Are you interested or committed? Interested is when things are convenient. And I've got news for you. Your success will be no more convenient 6 months from now than it is today. So you might as well do something every day that at least inches you more closer and closer and closer towards what it is you want. Commitment, on the other hand, is not about convenience. It's about doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling or emotion when you said it has passed. Let me repeat that. Commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling or emotion when you said it has passed. Why do you think most people fail at New Year's resolutions? Because in that moment, they were charged up. New year, new me, let's go. And 2 weeks later, they've fallen off the face of the earth. I want you as jacked up, crazy excited 6 months from now, even when the moment is gone, you can't bottle up that feeling or emotion. That's commitment. Lastly, decide. Make a freaking decision. You're adults. Decide. Side, C-I-D-E, literally means what? To kill off. The death of, to kill off. Close enough, thank you. It literally means to kill off. Insecticide, pesticide, any word with side in it means to kill off something. In our case, ladies and gentlemen, today, you get to decide whether you walk out these doors committed or just interested. Life, when those doors open and you go home, life will hit you. Distractions. That scary word, no. You have a decision to make. And when I decide, I have planted my feet down saying, once and for all, I deserve it. My family deserves it. There is nothing that's going to derail me, right? I'm killing off fear, maybe, or at least greeting fear. Complacency, doubt, mediocrity, being average. That is what I'm killing off because once and for all, I'm taking a stance for my greatness. And that's all I can leave you with today, you guys. Whatever you do, whatever your decision is, just know you're making one. You're either committed to your excuses or you're committed to that future self that's got a compelling future just waiting for you. And I know all of us in this abundant room wants to see it happen for you. So that's what I've got. Oh, let me get that one last slide. So you guys, if you didn't get it the first time, there it is. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much.